You can have a private conversation with the mayor and look at his plans for the city. The good thing, the budget was passed, so now we're not just talking ideas, we're actually going to talk about actual projects that the administration will be working on. This is not going to be a one-time event. This is going to be a series with different elected officials, so we can get, especially young professionals and from different fields, being able to have that personal channel with people in power.
I'll give a recap of the budget. I think to go anything longer than that will probably be too much. And then open it up, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So from the budgetary perspective, walking in January, the city, we inherited roughly $28 million deficit, which means we're short $28 million, and you have 6 months to figure it out. 22 million of that is what we refer to as a structural deficit, meaning it's a deficit that's annual. So you can defer 6 million of that 28 million, but the other 22, you have to come up with it for that year and in perpetuity every year after that. And so, that's it's a sizable pot of money, especially when you're talking about your whole budget is roughly $127 million. And so that's a lot of money that you have to come up with and solutions that you have to create. So thankfully this week we passed the budget 6-1, and so what I'll do is maybe walk through some of the highlights and specifics of what we actually had accomplished. So where did the deficit come from? The deficit largely came from the failure of the passing of the millage in November. We lost about 16 million in revenue from property taxes. There was additional 4 million in revenue that we also lost in appeals on commercial real estate, given that the value of commercial real estate has plummeted. And so we're seeing a lot of appeals, and we had to give up about 4 million back. And then we also had about 2.2 million, which the city had historically short-funded or defunded retiree health care that we did not accept, and we wouldn't want to do in that way. The other 6 million are part of the $28 million deficit. The city has deferred improvements on a lot of our facilities and replacing a lot of city vehicles over the last several years. If you look at our budgets historically, they keep deferring the upgrades, and all that does is it makes this the upgrades necessarily larger and larger year over year. So to date, we're about $7 million in needs just to update existing facilities.
There's been some rumors, I run a nonprofit obviously, and there's been some rumors that the city is looking to have their own nonprofit. And so I'm a little concerned of how that's going to affect, if that is the case, how that will affect the nonprofits in the community.
It's a great question. So historically speaking, the city has had a nonprofit, the Dearborn Community Foundation. Dearborn Community Fund, forgive me. The Dearborn Community Fund was founded under Mayor Guido, and the purpose of that fund was to serve as a fiduciary. And so if you look to like the Ford Performing Arts Center, the reason the city wanted a nonprofit arm was when they collect donations, they want to make sure that the corporate entities had the tax write-off. And so that's why that fund was created. If you look at Homecoming Festival, all the sponsorships we actually get from Homecoming go to the Dearborn Community Fund. They don't come to the City of Dearborn. Again, for the tax advantages for those corporations. And then the Community Fund holds a percentage. We negotiated 5% this year, and then we get the rest. What's happening with the Dearborn Community Fund is the Dearborn Community Fund has informed us that they no longer wish to serve in this capacity and that they want to do their own programming. Arts-oriented programming. And so we don't know what that means if they're going to be willing to act as fiduciaries for events like Homecoming where we just raise dollars. And so I think that's the question that we're trying to answer, but nothing has moved since, so no creation or anything of that sort. We were just informed recently that they no longer wish to act as fiduciaries, which was their original intent when they were created.
A question about marijuana growing and then the dispensary. That's, the talk about your administration supporting it or against it. Can you tell us what your administration is trying to do?
Yeah, so we came in and we immediately we opposed sale of medical marijuana in the city of Dearborn from a dispensary perspective. From the growing perspective, residents are able to grow at home based on state law. You can't stop that. The previous administration and council did pass a caregiver ordinance for warehouses and recreational. And so I think there's 5 that were grandfathered in. but then they paused it. So that pause expires in December of this year. We're actually taking up that ordinance this fall, and it's my hopes that we ban permanently the sale of recreational marijuana so it never comes to the city of Dearborn. But we're also trying to figure out from an equity perspective, where do you permit the growing? Because there's you have to permit some degree of it on the medicinal side, I believe. And so we're taking that up this fall. Because right now the way it works is if we permit it, all the zoning is in the south end, and it'd only be happening in the south end, which is very wrong. And so I think the communities should be, respected on what they want near their homes. So we're hoping to find a solution where we're abiding by state law, but not allowing the proliferation of growing, and we're saying no to dispensaries across the board.
Is the city taking any actions to kind of limit kids and maybe educate kids on the dangers of bad accidents and what can happen in a bad accident?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So a few points. One, if you look at our first quarter data for citations on reckless driving and speeding, and you compare year over year, we're up nearly 700%. On issuing of citations, but you can't ticket the issue and solve it. So what you also saw recently is anybody that's driving recklessly and burning out and doing of that nature, we're actually forfeiting their vehicles. Okay. And so to get your car back, you'd pay $4,000. And I think that's, if you're willing to drive recklessly, that's a citation that you're willing to take. And it's something that's on your record. And the points that you'd assume from a reckless driving ticket, you're the attorneys, You're going to be the ones that they're going to call and try to get defending before our prosecutors. And so we've tightened up our book on our end to make it more difficult for you. Third, we have the traffic calming measures. Those will largely be put in the neighborhoods, can't be put on main ways. But what we're also doing now, working with our police department, is we actually now have a curriculum that we also want to start educating folks in that are repeat offenders. So more than just getting the impeding or the double parking, whatever it might be, if you're a repeat, you're going to go through this class, and so you're going to pay us for that as well. And go through this class is being taught by Dearborn Police Department, and an element will be with the Public Health Department. To hopefully educate folks on the importance of it.
And I'm here tonight listening to Mayor Abdullah Hammoud talk about the community and things that his administration is envisioning for the community. I'm a concerned nonprofit organization. They have a nonprofit, and I just wanted to make sure that we're all not competing for the same dollars and that we can all still continue our good work in the community.
والله هو اللقاء مهم هيدي كتير منيحة للادمنستريشن إذا عندك مثلا المير تسأله أسئلة ويكون هو عم بيعطي البوليسيز والشغلات للناس. أنا بأيدها كتير كتير مهمة، وهذه شغلة كتير أنا بأيدها وبتشكر كتير للمير وبتشكر للأستاذ حسين على المقابل.
عن جد المير الله يعطيه العافية، وهذه أول مرة بالسيتي اوف ديربورن بنشوف إنه ان ديتيلز بيشرح لنا عن كل شيء أبدا. اليوم حكى عن البادجت والبادجت ديفيسيت وكيف عم يشتغلوا ليعوضوا الديفيسيت. شغله كتير منيحه. بالاول من زمان هيك ما كان في موجود بديربورن هذا الشيء. هلا حسينا انه بالفعل المير مع الناس وللناس وراح يشتغل والله يعطيه العافيه.
This was a great meeting because I think citizen input is so important when we set our budgetary priorities, because as we've said all the time at council, a budget is a reflection of your values, and I think the biggest thing with this budget is we wanted to abide by the residents' declaration that they were tired of paying so much in property taxes and they wanted the city to fit within its budget. So I think we're well on our way to achieving that, and inshallah we're going to get to a balanced budget soon, and we're going to keep finding efficiencies wherever we can to help provide the best services we possibly can with what we have to offer.
So I think it was a pleasure co-hosting this event here today with WhatsApp Media and the Iraqi American Foundation. It was great to see what a transparent mayor we have now and how everything is out in the open. We're aware of what's going on with the budget, what's going on with the city administration, what they're looking to do and what they are currently working on. So it's great to finally see something like this. It's really refreshing. And I look forward to seeing more people being engaged with the city administration, but also just civically engaged in general and aware about what's going on in their community. So it was a pleasure and we had a wonderful time. Thank you.
مرحبا، معكم حسين هشام من قناة الأخبار. اليوم كان عندنا حوار مع عمدة مدينة ديربورن عبدالله حمود. هيدي رح تكون سلسلة من الحوارات مع مسؤولين على صعيد المدينة، على صعيد الولاية، وأيضا أعضاء في الكونغرس الأمريكي وأصحاب قرار، لحتى نخليهم يتواصلوا مع رجال أعمال وسيدات أعمال، مع أشخاص من مختلف الأعمار، من مختلف الأعراق، وأيضا من مختلف الخلفيات اللي بيجوا منا. هيدا الحفل أو الإيفنت أو الحوار اللي عملناه اليوم in partnership عملناه بالتعاون مع الجمعية العراقية الأمريكية. أكيد دائما بنحب نحن يكون عندنا تعاون مع الآخرين، ودائما إيدنا ممدودة للآخرين لحتى نتعاون معهم بما فيه خير لهيدي الجالية وتوعية وثقافة لأبناء هيدي الجالية. شكرا لكم.